This is an incoming transmission from the Jersey Shore.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group. Today you'll hear some of the most important financial information and wealth-building techniques available anywhere.
Let's get this party started, huh?
Do you have a question for Scott and the team?
Am I on the air?
609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646.
We'll get that information to them by radio.
Now, Financial Insanity with Scott McLean.
Thank you so much for joining us for Financial Insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. I'm your host, Alex Dingman, alongside, as always, Scott McLean, founder of McLean Advisory Group, and my friend. Scott, is great to see you as always. We're going to be,
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. We're going to be talking about 2025, some things on the horizon, and always excited. New year, new challenges, new opportunities, right, Scott?
There's a lot of opportunities. It's exciting, but there's a lot of volatility. I look at the VIX volatility. It's very high. So we'll talk about that for those people that are nervous. Maybe they have the itch and they want to stop itching or are scared. So thanks for joining us if you're out there. And we appreciate you listening to our show.
Absolutely. And so we're going to be talking about the kind of state of what's going on here this year, but also later on, testamentary trust with our buddy George there from your office. And then we're also going to be going back in time to 1990, getting in a time machine later on in the show today. Oh, yeah. But Scott, some key economic challenges. What are we watching out for here in 2025?
We're watching out for a couple things. I think that's going to be very helpful. Is number one, the inflation. Market volatility is going crazy now that Trump's making some rules and putting some in place, and then Social Security. So there's a lot going on, Alex. And can we break them down to make it easier for our listeners?
Yeah, let's start with inflation. You know, we're seeing it come back down, but it seems like, you know, maybe it's kind of stalled a little bit. What can you tell us about the current state of things?
Number one, brace yourself.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's coming down right away. First of all, the Fed's playing a game called whack-the-mole with interest rates, and you try to tame the inflation without sending the economy into a spiral tailspin. And the big question is whether the inflation really stays sticky or starts to behave. And if sticky, of course, that means the higher costs. And retirees aren't going to like it, and they're probably spending more money and, of course, going to the grocery cart. So we think about market volatility in 2024. Pretty much the election results are going to have some impact. And we're looking at that right now. So number one, do we see it going down? I right now don't see it going down right now, but we are looking at our portfolios and making sure we have a lower risk factor in our portfolios. We are nervous about all the trade wars that are going on. And of course, Trump is putting a lot of stuff in the market that could really cause some problems. So bottom line, you know, walking into a year of some challenges on inflation. Of course, market volatility.
Yeah.
Well, that's the elections. And so we know Trump says a lot of stuff, and then he's just trying to get people to the table. And of course, the global tensions, interest rates are moved. We see what's right now. If the tariffs are kicking in, we're looking at the Canada and Mexico could spin them out of control. It could be a problem. So we're looking at that. In addition to that, interest rates are moving corporately slowly, but I don't see it dropping like they were talking about in 24. And following the last one, we spoke about the inflation, the market volatility. This is where people make mistakes. They jump out when they shouldn't jump out, or maybe they need to reallocate their portfolio, which if you're out there and you're a client, give us a call. But we are paying attention to that. And the last one in the tool shed, that's affecting everybody who is on Social Security, and we can't forget about that. So the key discussions on that, Alex, are really inclining us to think about, are we on a cliff? Are we not on a cliff? Could Social Security run out or be reduced by 25% by 2033? If Congress doesn't make some changes, which they should, that is a problem. So they need to make those changes. In addition, Trump wants to make it tax-free. Could be a tremendous for you listening. If you're taking Social Security or thinking of taking Social Security, this is why people call our office and speak to us off the air, 609-488-4666. And why do they call? If again, they enact this rule that Social Security is tax-free, Remember, Alex, Social Security can be taxed up to 85%. So if you're making $10,000 a year in Social Security, to keep it simple, that means $8,500 is going on the tax line. Now, if you're listening to us, could you be paying tax on Social Security? Well, if that's off the table, this could be some great strategies if it of course goes into play. And this is why you don't want to wait, why you definitely want to work with your financial advisor or call our office at 609-488-4646 to say, Scotty, George, what do we do? They're making Social Security free. I do a Roth conversion? Should I take Social Security? What's the ramifications, pro and con? I think that's what's going on with these three different areas, as you brought up, the inflation, market volatility, and Social Security. And that's what's going on right now. It's really exciting and could be scary for a lot of people out there who are on a fixed income.
Scott, I want to go back to Social Security a little bit. We know that, the cost of living adjustment always comes out, and we see that it's a modest increase this year, 2.5%. So how do you talk to folks about helping keep their income, in pacing with inflation?
Well, the nice thing, Alex, is we did get a bump in pay not we, I should say, those who are taking Social Security of 2.5. Now, if you're not taking, of course, your portfolio in the Social Security world is going to go up 2.5. You won't see it, but you'll see if you download and go to mysocialsecurity.gov, you'll be able to see the increase. Now, that being said, it's not exactly keeping up with the real cost of inflation, obviously. Right. We know. We hear everything on TV. It's about eggs. Well, calm down. It's more than just eggs. But yes, we see that.
But the eggs, Scott.
It's exactly the eggs, Scott. And grocery bills, the utility bills. So we'd like to always tell people that Social Security is a foundation. It's not the full retirement plan. That's why when you meet with your financial advisor, or if you decide, I want a free consultation, I'd like to meet with you, Scott or George, in our office. This is a wonderful time to give our studios a call and say, let's come in, let's meet, speak to one of our associates in my office and say, I'd like to come in at 609-488-4646. Because really, maybe you don't want to rely on Social Security alone. Because with inflation, that's going to go up a little bit, but I call it the squeeze factor. You're squeezing the juice out of this beautiful lemon, and all of a sudden it's stopped coming out. So I think what people need to really look at is building streams of income in their portfolio, whether interest rates are high or low, which we're coming out of high interest rates. So you enjoy those nice dividends or interest payments. But the question is, will they go up or down? How does that affect your retirement? The worst thing to do is what? Sit on your tailbone and do nothing, not getting the advice or the consultation you probably should talk about now as we watch what's going on in the economy.
Yep. As we are talking about some of the challenges facing retirees here in this year, 2025. And Scott, bond markets, they signaled that they anticipate interest rate cuts this year, possibly around 4%. What are some ways those rate cuts could impact retirees?
The rate cuts could affect many and all people on a fixed income. And then, of course, how you're pulling money out. Are you dollar cost averaging when you put your money in? Well, if you're dollar cost averaging when you're pulling money out, you could be eating your own principal. This is important as we watch interest rates going down. Is your income going down? So we look at CDs, money market savings account. Of course, we've been enjoying those for the past few years. We see them dropping slightly. And by the way, there are some great rates out there that are still available, around 5% or more, whether it's 3, 4, 5 years fixed, where banks can't offer that and insurance companies can. When we think about parking cash, that's the easy way. We also make sure that bond values tend to go up when interest rates go down. So this could be a sweet haven right now for fixed income. And that's good news for retirees because really holding longer term bonds, as their values in the bond may go up, but you're still getting that coupon or that dividend twice a year. But again, if you're investing and you're new to bonds or preferreds or tools that are paying you a nice dividend, it's nice to know what you're investing in. Number 2, the strength of the companies. And number 3, the most important thing is when you show up at the mailbox, is that check going to be there? This is the strength and the power of the companies, which is why when people call us at our studios and ask what's going on and should I go into bonds, feel free to give our studios a call. Alex, I would love the people to give us a call at 609-488-4646. And we could have us spend a couple minutes. Again, 609-488-4646. Because historically, his stocks do well. We came out of a tremendous year, 2024. But could this year fuel your Pepto-Bismol to start taking more or not? I don't know. But again, we need to understand volatility, your risk that's out there. Should we go into the fixed income stream since interest rates are high? Because remember, as I just said, if interest rates are going down, the bond values, the long-term bond values are going up in value. This could be a great place to put your money of many other places in the universe of investing.
No, I love that, Scott. And as we are talking about investing and obviously, focusing on those entering retirement, how do you kind of change that strategy when it comes to investments as you do get into retirement? Because it is a different world now.
We do need to change the strategies. We do change them often. And obviously, as Americans, we're all optimistic. We all want better. Problem number one, which I've noticed throughout my entire 40 plus years in the industry, is number one, retirees need to be proactive. And that means if your advisor is not calling you and letting you know what's going on, maybe you need to give them a jingle or give us a call. Number two, being proactive. Should I go into fixed income or stock market or both? We think about the opportunities. Optimism, of course, is the projection of what's that we're looking at. And the investment strategies, whether you're shifting from growth to income, maybe you're out there, you want to reduce your exposure to the market and you don't like that volatility because you can't sleep well at night. Or maybe your husband or wife, your spouse, your significant partner just passed away and now you lost a significant income. This is a time not to be really mundane and relaxed. This is a time to really sit down and talk, even if you got a large inheritance. This is a time to really plot out a game plan because there's nothing worse than doing it at the last minute. So we want to be tax smart. In addition, paying attention to all these areas, whether it's the risk of the inflation, Social Security. So there's a lot out there. And Alex, if anybody would like to give our studios a call, please feel free because volatility is here. It is not going away. When Trump makes a decision, it could be for a week, 2 weeks. It could be for life. We don't know. But again, it's rattling the markets, which means if you're listening to our show right now, which we've been doing for so many years, are you getting rattled? Let's get unrattled. 609-488-4646. And maybe we can really help calm the nerves and have you come in and visit with us. No cost, no obligation. 609-488-4646.
Thank you for that, Scott. And thank you to all of our great listeners. Plenty more to come. This is Financial Insanity.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money, but do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At McLean Advisory Group, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the McLean Advisory Group team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Tax Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies are not associated entities.
And when you pay down debt, you don't pay down the highest interest rate. The biggest mistake is you pay the highest interest rate card when you should do the snowball effect of paying down debt.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
Thank you so much for joining us today for Financial Insanity. I'm Alex Dingman, alongside, as always, Scott McLean of McLean Advisory Group. And also today's special guest, George Castanis, Senior Advisor with McLean Advisory Group right here in Ocean County, New Jersey. Scott, always good to see you. And George, great to have you on again, my friend.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Heck yeah, and we have you on here because we're going to be talking about something a little specific and something that I know you guys feel like maybe isn't talked about enough, right?
It does. You're right. This is hardly ever brought up, which is why at our firm we do this all the time when we meet people for the first time to get to know them.
And we are going to be talking about testamentary trusts and how they can help align your assets with 3D planning. Dreams, your dollars, your dynasty, what we always talk about here on Financial Insanity. So we have a little scenario here to help explain this. And so imagine we have a couple here, Juan, 62 years old, and Liz. They are from the Oblivious family. Liz, 58. They're a couple with 3 grown children. They have Miguel, who's 27, and he has 2 children. Susan, 34, who has 3 children and a rocky marriage. And good old Tony, who's 35, from the estate valued at $1.2 million, which includes their home, retirement assets, and savings. And they have a clear vision for their legacy, and they want to ensure, like a lot of us, that their hard-earned assets benefit the grandchildren directly, even if their children pass away before them. So talk a little bit about this, Scott.
Alex, I'm glad if you're out there listening, this point is this, whether it's your estate like this or you have kids or no kids, understanding what's going on. But this family really want to ensure that their assets go to Miguel's and Susan, their children, their grandchildren. However, they also have some concerns. You see, they got a wild child, Tony, and he's got some bad habits, and they don't want him to get all the money at once. They prefer Tony to receive a monthly payment to protect him from himself and his bad habits. This is important. George, you had a thought about this as well.
Absolutely. It's super important to get everything lined up. In this scenario, if Miguel passes away, Susan will be the trustee for Miguel's children, and Miguel will be the trustee for Susan's children. Notwithstanding, though, you definitely want to make sure that even though perhaps the lawyer lines everything up and gets the trust and the testamentary trust correct, you want to make sure the beneficiaries of all the accounts are titled correctly. Super important to have someone just in your corner to make sure that everything lines up correctly. The setup provides control and ensures that your legacy stays within the family.
And I want to make sure that people jot this number down. If they have questions about testamentary trust or anything we talk about today, that phone number, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646, Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group. So really the big deal here and something that you guys work with a lot is just making sure that people's wishes are honored. And so with Mr. and Mrs. Oblivious here, what can we do? I know that testamentary trust can help. Discuss this a little bit about how this tool can help ensure that legacy is done like you want.
It's almost as if you're kind of directing the executrix to do your wishes and to avoid probate if possible, if it's nice and clean. And the problem is we've got Miguel with kids and Susan with kids. The question is their spouses. The family wanted to make sure the money goes to Susan or Miguel, the son and daughter. The child, and of course their other child who's a wild one. The question's going to be really is, in all fact, that Miguel's got 2 kids, Susan's got 3 kids, but she's got a rocky marriage. What happens if Susan dies and then mom and dad dies and the money goes down to the grandchildren? Well, then that means Susan's husband, or if they got divorced husband gets the assets. And if he or she gets remarried, and she meaning Miguel's wife, who gets the money? Now, could they divide it up correctly? Possibly. But let's not leave this a question mark. And if you're out there right now thinking, you know what, I think maybe my children could oversee. In this case, Miguel will be the trustee over Susan's children, and Susan will be the trustee over Miguel's children in the event they die, not their spouses. And I'm not making fun of anybody's spouses right now. If you're listening to me, I am not doing that. I'm making it very clear to keep the money within the bloodline. And how do we protect it? This is why people come to our firm, because we look at the assets, which are so critical. And by sending them to the wrong place, well, they can go to a lawyer. But if this in writing like we want it to be and you want it to be, well, this is, again, we're baking the cake, making sure all the ingredients are exactly what you want. And if you're out there, please feel free to give our studios a call at 609-488-4646. You can ask for myself, you can ask for George, but let's have some time together to make sure your assets are buttoned up nice and tight. And this is what we don't see so many times. And this is like putting your head in the sand, letting your vitals get exposed to anybody who wants to get your money. And this is important, Alex.
Yeah. And you are listening to Financial Insanity. Scott McLean and George Casanas with McLean Advisory Group joining us today. And really, this is all part of that holistic view of financial planning, Scott, that comprehensive approach, which I know that you and your office pride yourself on. But how does this fit into it? When we're talking about testamentary trust, how's that fit into the comprehensive plan?
And, it's I want to hit on a point Scott hit on earlier. It's not just about managing the money after you're gone. A testamentary trust can offer all kinds of protection from against creditors, lawsuits, and even, I know we all have one in the family, irresponsible spending by beneficiaries. It's a way to safeguard the legacy for future generations. For example, like we're talking about Mr. and Mrs. Oblivious, can set up a trust that ensures their grandchildren directly benefit from their assets as well.
Well, and that's just such a big deal. And it's really not about not trusting family members. It really is about just making sure that that legacy follows through and that your wishes are what is carried out. And so talk to me about this too, about how this helps ensure that, and, who's in control of this at this point once it's, handed over. How does that work?
Well, for those listening right now, it's not difficult and very easy to do. Once your advisor, your financial advisor, drills you down and find out exactly how you want your money, I call it the dynasty, how that is going to be passed on. This is important to get all the details. But the testamentary trust is almost like your wishes, but someone's going to carry out your wishes and then they set it up. It's not really that expensive, if at all. We really talk about our clients. So number one, know what you want to know if you pass away. And it's kind of hard, and it may change from year to year. So must be set up like Juan and Liz Oblivious. They were totally oblivious as to how their estate was going to be divided up between the kids, the three kids. And in this case, we got a special needs son, not special needs, but a son that's doing things they ought not do. I don't know about your kids out there, drinking, smoking, doing things. Maybe they're not working, they're slackers, and you want to set up a trust. Well, that could be set up in the testamentary trust with inside the will. That could be setting it up. And what happens? Okay, maybe that child gets a monthly check. Or maybe you have a son or daughter that their health is not doing very well. And if you gave them all the money, they might blow it. Well, let's go set up a game plan, which is what we talk to you about in our meetings, how that money should be divided out, or what clauses should we put within the will and the testamentary trust. So when someone gets the money, it's passed down just like you want it. George, you might have some other thoughts.
Yeah, another really important part here, Scott, and listeners, is definitely you want to get a trusted family member appointed as a trustee to manage those assets. Someone that will absolutely follow up on your wishes. And even after the family member, or maybe perhaps you have a family member that you trust that's aging, there's even trust companies out there that will continue on to manage those assets long after you're gone and can continue your legacy the way you wanted it to go.
If you've got questions, I want you really to enjoy this next phone number, 609-488-4646. Why to enjoy it? Because it's a place for you to go to that maybe your advisor didn't speak to the lawyer, or even we're talking about taxation in a little bit. They didn't pay attention to the details. And that's where the rub can cause the crows and the clowns to show up at the funeral, not knowing what to do. This is important, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something earlier, Scott, special needs. And other unique circumstances, but I know that there's a way that the testamentary trust can address that as well, right?
It can. And so whether you're George brought up a spendthrift trust, maybe they want to blow all the money at once, you want to protect it. Maybe they're doing medication, drugs, alcohol, whatever. They have a bad habit. They need help. Set that up in the testamentary trust. Special needs. This is another whole special program that you out there, if you have a child that is special needs and you really want the best for that child, obviously you do. Well, let's set it up correctly so your money doesn't get taken by the vultures. The nursing home, maybe mom and dad.
We also want to make sure we're using to our benefit all the government aid available. So if one of special needs child is receiving government aid, this is a great way to coincide those assets and those benefits.
It's a critical way. It is very important you don't procrastinate.
Well, it's a very important conversation. I'm glad we're having it today, and it really just helps highlight just the comprehensive approach that Scott and his team take at McLean Advisory Group. So that number again, if you have any questions, 609-488-4646. That is 609-488-4646 at a.com for the website. When we come back, we're going to continue our discussion on testamentary trust. That's on the other side.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money, but do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At McLean Advisory Group, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the McLean Advisory Group team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Tax Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies are not associated entities.
I call it the chicken and the egg. The chicken is the investment. The egg is the dividend. And so when the chicken pops out the eggs, if you don't need the money, let's reinvest the eggs and buy more chickens.
Man, that's just an excellent analogy, Scott.
We made it back. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
This is Financial Insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. I'm Alex Dingman alongside Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group, and also George Costanis is on with us today, sub-advisor, both with tons of experience, and we're talking about a very important topic today, testamentary trust. And if you have questions, that number 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. And we're going to get to some listener questions on this topic, as we've had some from throughout the years, and so compiling here. And so our first call is from Julia in New Jersey. The question is here. Hey, Scott, George, my parents thinking about setting up a testamentary trust. How does it impact taxes for the beneficiaries?
First of all, Julia, thank you for calling in. And most important, you're paying attention to your parents' affairs. A lot of kids won't get involved, and it's so important you do. So great job on that. You know, when I think about the income generated by the trust, it can be taxed at a trust level or distributed to the beneficiaries, taxed at the individual rates. So this is important to understand taxes, and why when we meet with people one-on-one, or we have the children come in with the parents as we're doing the estate planning, this is very important, because when you help manage the overall tax burden, this is really important to look at the tax return in addition to the legal documents. Or if your advisor doesn't do it, then have the advisor make the phone call to the lawyer and go over it with you guys, so you're all together on the same page because that's where the problems come in. And additionally, when you think about the assets in the trust, it can be passed with a step up in basis if the lawyer designs it correctly. And I can tell you, some lawyers are unaware of how to make this happen. So this is important. I've read, and George has read, several different legal documents, and they are prepared incorrectly. Now, we're not lawyers, but we do deal with lawyers all the time. We understand this very well. It is a fair disclaimer. So again, the assets, again, can be sold and then distributed. This is important.
All right, our second listener question today. This is from Dave in Texas. Very cool. Thanks for calling in from Texas. All right, so Dave here. This question. Hey, everyone. Wondering, can a testamentary trust help with Medicaid planning for long-term care? I haven't heard you necessarily talk about that yet, but what do you guys think?
Wow, Dave, that is a great question. Thanks so much for calling in and bringing that up. Absolutely. Testamentary trusts can be a valuable tool for Medicaid planning. Now, the important part here is you gotta, if you're doing any kind of planning that is this complicated, the laws change all the time. It's so crucial to make sure you get valuable information, current information. But they can definitely help by placing the assets in a testamentary trust. You can help ensure that those assets are not counted as part of your estate for Medicaid eligible purposes. Super important. You got to know what's countable. You got to know what's not countable. You know the rules of the game, and you can help preserve and play that game better, in a manner of speaking. This will help preserve those assets for your beneficiaries while still qualifying for those Medicaid benefits. However, it's important to work with that professional, like I said before, to navigate these complex rules surrounding the Medicaid trusts.
So Alex, the real reason we do these shows is it's about finances.
Yeah.
You see, when you have all this money coming down to your children or grandchildren, and then maybe something happens to your son or daughter, one of them passes away, and of course they have children, like we said about Mr. and Mrs. Oblivious. The problem comes down to, how does the money get spent? How does it be organized in a fashion where the crows and the clowns, government, maybe divorcees, maybe they're going to try to get their hands on all your goodies. And this is what we see. And by the way, just because you have a testamentary trust doesn't mean you can't update it on a yearly basis, whereas we're our firm, when we meet with people on the annual review or a quick phone call, or maybe there's an opportunity out there we can help people, what we find often is, maybe as we ask the questions about the legalities and the beneficiaries, maybe they need to change it. So you can make changes down the line, but if you've got kids or family that are squabbling, or maybe the money's going to the wrong place, or you're not sure, keep in mind this is a great provision to put in. And you can obviously, on top of having the great provision put in, you can change it later online. So it's not set it and forget it. This is something your advisor should be reviewing on a quick annual basis, not in depth, and ask, by the way, how the kids, what's going on? Anybody pass away? Your son and daughter, are they going through a divorce? What's going on? Or do you have any kids that had a special needs? Maybe they played football and they got in an accident, and maybe they're in a wheelchair, like a case I did in Toms River, New Jersey, where the gentleman got in a football accident. Now we have to have a special needs trust, hide the money. So as George clearly stated, he doesn't lose the benefits from the government, Alex. So this is not a set and forget it. This is a discussion on an ongoing basis with your financial advisor.
If you have questions about what we are talking about today, that number for Scott McLean, George Casanas, the team at McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. All right, another question here, the final one. This one is coming from Linda in California. Okay, Linda says, I have a special needs child. How can a testamentary trust provide my child without affecting their government benefits? And I know you kind of talked about this a little bit, but if you would kind of just emphasize that point for me, Scott.
You know, Linda, this is really important to understand for those listening as well. I'm so glad these questions come in. When you look at testamentary trust, it can be tailored really to provide a special needs child without jeopardizing the eligibility of government benefits. George brought that up earlier. So if you're just joining us and you have a special needs child, This could be a great, great tool to preserve the assets from the government, nursing home, somebody taking it. Now, this is often done through the Special Needs Trust, which is a type of testamentary trust that allows the management of assets for the benefits of the special needs individual. Again, you set it. It's not set it, forget it, but you're going to put it in place. And once it's there, we need to have a trustee and a backup trustee. And so this is important. George, what else have you noticed when we dealt with people like this?
That's absolutely right, Scott. Now, we want to ensure that you're maximizing every dollar, and that's between the government benefits. And at the end of the day, money is a tool to live the life you want, the quality of life you want. And by using these benefits, the government benefits, and these tools such as a testamentary trust, you can ensure a higher quality of life for your child and cover expenses that aren't covered by government benefits alone.
And if you could, where does this testamentary trust fit in as part of that comprehensive retirement strategy? As we're hearing this, how does this all fit into the overall plan?
It fits in on the first meeting when we meet people. It fits on the first meeting when you're looking for an advisor. It fits in when they ask questions about your dollars. And then when they talk about your money, it's not just about the dollars, but first it's about your dreams, how you see it happening, how you want things to be laid out. That starts with the first meeting on the discovery period, the dreams. And then, of course, the dollars, where they're going to go. And then the legacy, how should it be passed on? This 3D approach is so critical. It's a holistic approach. And then when you start to frame out this, when we start to do it with our clients, we then call their lawyer. Or if they want to use lawyers that we work with, they can use that as well. It's not just about McLean, but McLean is pretty much, our goal is really to design the car you want to drive, and the lawyer's job is to build it. And as we talk about it, because we've done this for 40 plus years, I can tell you that for sure, that we want to make sure your money is going in the right place, because I can tell you, the crows and the clowns, they will show up at the funeral, but maybe they can't knock on the door because you have an ironclad program. I promise you, this is important if you don't pay attention.
Well, and when is it important to start the process? I mean, if I'm looking at this, what age, or is it about where I'm at in my life? What's the answer as far as getting this going?
It's so simple. I'm an old dog. I'm 65. You got George here. What's 36, 37? And I can tell you, what age, George, do you think somebody should start this?
You hit the nail on the head. There are so many factors there that could produce a need to start planning. But honestly, at the end of the day, we see more and more people that fail because they just go through life buying financial products or investments. And here we really do like to start it with the planning first, the ideas first. What do you want your money to do for you? So really, it's either life situations, it's what you're planning on doing in the future. The sooner you start, the better. That's for sure. Don't put this aside. It's so easy to not do this since there is no timeline or final due date. But I'll tell you, life catches up quick with you. And the slower you are with this, the more you're going to have to do at the end. So always you want to start with that plan and then work towards that plan.
Listen to me. If your kids, I challenge you, dads and moms, to speak to your kids, and they're over 18. Do they have a power of attorney? Have they taken care of their estate? Maybe you have a mom, maybe you have children that have children. Maybe you have grandkids. Have you gotten with your son or your daughter, looked them in the eye as my dad would do me, as I remember so many times, with that strong eyes looking at me? Did you set up your will? Did you take care of the kids? What happens if you pass away? And it's not that emotional, but it can be emotional. And it's not that really pushy, because I can tell you, if you care about your kids, you want to find out from your kids, is it done? Because I can tell you, as we took in a daughter at 8 years old, her mom and dad didn't have a will. The father didn't want to raise her, and we raised her because that was the right thing to do. But what a nightmare it could have been had I not had the right contacts and the right people in my life. You have the right people in your life. It's right here at McLean Advisory Group. We've been doing these education shows for so long, and if you've been putting it off, please give our studios a call. Let us help answer your question. Ask for George. He's way overqualified. He's a CFP. He's got his license. He's been doing it over 15 years. I can tell you one thing. Either one of us will help you make the decisions or help guide you to making the right decisions for your family. And don't forget about standing up to your kids, because they need to be reminded to get their legal matters in order, not just a will.
Now, Scott, that brings up another question we get all the time. A lot of people are listening to the testamentary trust, lawyers. Do you have to be super wealthy to need one of these? What is there a net asset? Is there a number when I need to start thinking about this? Or I could just feel that a lot of listeners are saying, you know what, I'm not that wealthy to need this.
You know, whether you're not wealthy or not, you need to have a written document, or the government's going to give you a written document. The document that in this state of New Jersey, they have their own written document. So by not giving your desires out there, you've let the desires of the state take over. Now, who's better to handle it, you or the state? So this is why it's so important. I have a younger daughter right now. She's 19. Her affairs are in order. I've got an older daughter. She's 47. You want to make sure their affairs in order. Now, whether they do it or don't do it, that's not on you. It's on you to bring it up. Lead the horse to water, salt the oats, and hopefully they'll drink.
Scott McLean, George Costanis of McLean Advisory Group, here to help. That number, 609-488-4646. If you have questions, again, that phone number, 609-488-4646. More financial insanity coming up.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly does not. With near record inflation and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will America's future look like? What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? For more than 40 years here in the Jersey Shore area, Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group have seen uncertainty come and go. No matter what the future holds, Scott can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 609-488-4646 now to meet with Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group. If uncertainty is causing you to feel insecure, Scott McLean might be able to help. Call 609-488-4646 and schedule your visit today. Again, that's 609-488-4646.
Investment advisory services are offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Frankly, you could have your grandkids tweet out to your friends or go on the Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is and say, I got great information from Scott.
And you left out TikTok there as you're rambling off the different social media being used by the kids today. You got to remember that TikTok.
That's right. Tickety-tock.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group.
Today, we're hopping in our time machine and going back to 1990. This is Financial Insanity. I'm Alex Dingman alongside Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group. If you have questions, the number 609-488-4646. 609-488-4646. Sometimes it's fun to take a trip down memory lane and also just to remind folks of what was going on back then, what were the prices of things. So here are some news pop culture highlights, Scott, from 1990. Well, you had, unfortunately, the Persian Gulf War started when Iraq invaded Kuwait.
Yeah.
You had NASA launch the Hubble telescope into space. Top movies: Ghost, oh yes, of course, Dances with Wolves, Pretty Woman, and Home Alone. All classics.
Wow.
On November 12th, 1990, the concept of the World Wide Web was formally proposed by Tim Berners-Lee. So way back 1990, the idea of the World Wide Web first announced. How about some financial stuff, Scott? So the medium Home value about 79,100 to be exact. Yep. The Dow actually ended 1990 2,633 that year. And let's see, you get a CD at the bank with an interest rate of around 8% in 1990, and then it would cost you somewhere about $12 to $15 for a CD. And if you're real young out there, you might be a CD. You just talked about a CD.
You had to burn them and save money. You had to burn your CDs.
Compact disc is what that stands for. Yeah. And the CD, that was technology, didn't quite, stand the test of time, unlike the record from a different, obviously time, but the record's kind of come back.
Totally different.
CDs,
I mean, just think about it. Go back that far. Ghost, Dancing with Wolves. Dances with Wolves. I think about that in Pretty Woman. It seems like just yesterday. It's like yesterday. I still feel like I'm 18, 20 years old. Though some of you older people out there, like my age, think, you know what? Your body feels like 90, but your brain thinks you're 20. It's amazing.
Right.
We're talking about economics. I think about the 90s, as you brought up, Alex, CD rates, and you weren't even around then. When were you born, Alex?
Oh, I was born mid-'80s. So I was there, but not.
You were still.
My mom and dad, they were worried about the CDs at the bank. I was concerned about Mickey Mouse. And,
exactly right.
Playing sports
and the fancy spoiler in the back of your bicycle or the banana seat.
You know it. That was freedom, baby. That's what that bicycle meant.
And the economic times, guys, if you remember out there, listen, I've been in the business since 1983, so I was in the muck with a lot of you. We had the early recession, 1990s, and that started the mid-90s, which really largely triggered the S&L crisis. This was the S&L crisis time, guys. And again, this is when oil spiked, and maybe you wanted to sell some gold. The gold spiked. So again, this was during the Persian Gulf, and of course, the rising interest rates in the late 80s, combat inflation. They think unemployment. So this is cyclical. It goes on and on. You think about the massive taxpayer funded bailouts. Did we not have that? We had that, of course, in the 2000, and of course, when the market took a real crash in 2008, we had 5 different bailouts and payouts, and remember the cash for clunkers. And so economic times in the 90s, guys, this is really real. In the 80s, of course, the federal, remember they raised interest rates to combat inflation, which led to what? A cooling economy. And these high interest rates, again, thinking about, Scott, how do we get through what we're going through now? Can we look back and learn? And I believe history we can learn from. The problem is when people don't learn from history and you repeat the same crap over and over again. Now let's go overseas. In Europe, we had a treaty going on, and it was being negotiated. Again, a lot of things happened, Alex, and I think you remember. Well, I think, Alex, you were going to talk about Social Security. Because remember, we had Social Security. What was the checks? The average check was, how was the average check, Alex?
Yeah, the average check. So, again, we're going back to 1990 here. The average Social Security check was about $550.
Yeah.
And
what is it now? I think the max is what, 2032? I mean, shoot.
Yeah. Well, and the number of retirement plans with a 401k feature, 97,614. That was the number of retirement plans with a 401k feature. Now, about 19.5 million people were participating in 401k plans with assets totaling nearly $385 billion. And now I would say, Scott, that's 1990. I would think people even now, or at least we try to have people realize even more the kind of things they're going to have on their own in retirement to pay for things, to not rely necessarily on Social Security and 401k plans. Is that something you've seen since 1990, people doing a better job, companies doing a better job getting people to participate in?
So, Alex, you're right. If you remember, you won't remember, but if all of us old people, we had the pension was fading out. The profit sharing and that was changing.
Right.
And they were taking the ownership of the corporations, now putting them on the backs of the employees. And so that's why we find now, as of contrast to now, we get 60 million active participates in the 401k plan, where back then it was hardly anything. And we had 19.5 million participating back then. So that has really increased. And if you're not an active participant, if you're listening to this and you're young, please participate. Even if they don't match, my goodness gracious, you can really do yourself a favor. Why? Because it's automatically coming out of your payroll. You're going to forget about it. You're going to live on that paycheck. So again, these are really, really important. I think about the 90s. Maybe if you can't remember the 90s, think about the Blockbuster. Remember the late fees? Hit your account? Well, Blockbuster's no longer.
No.
And Wayne Huizinga now, of course, doesn't own it. He's got rid of that company. So you kind of, I remember when visiting with him down there in Miami Dolphins spent many years. By the way, Alex, if you're out there and you're in the 90s, Alex might not remember this, although he might have played with them, called the Beanie Babies. That was a hot item. The values of Beanie Babies were skyrocketing. So you either bought Beanie Babies or you bought stock. I'm not sure what you guys did, but I was around. I was in the business, and it was a crazy, crazy time, and it's crazy now as well.
Well, and Scott, for folks,
Want to learn more?
609-488-4646. Let me make it real clear. Love to hear from you. 609-488-4646. By the way, that's our website. Just put a .com and learn about us. Don't put this off. I love to hear from you. Bring in your questions. We have answers. I promise you the time we spend will be totally worth your time.
Absolutely. As we're going back in time today, we're going back to 1990. And one thing we have to mention, Scott, we are a financial education show, is that there was a recession that occurred in 1990. Now, it wasn't a super long recession, did last 8 months. Now, it was characterized by a sluggish recovery from job losses. And so what led to this? Well, a few things. Restrictive monetary policy by the Federal Reserve to lower the rate of inflation, poor consumer confidence, real estate collapse, and another thing that led to this recession was a jump in oil prices. Average monthly price of a barrel of oil jumped from $17 to $36, which that's a significant leap. So a few things here that led to that recessions that we can learn from, Scott. Maybe.
Well, change, bell bottoms, they come back. Mini skirts, they come back. They go, they come back. But you know what doesn't come back is regrets. Not taking action on things that maybe financially you should think about. Maybe not paying attention to the entire picture of your finances. Have you really looked at your portfolio in light of, do I have enough saved? Will I run out of money? How will inflation really evaporate my money, or will it not? Am I investing for income or investing for growth? These are common questions, and I can tell you about the chicken and the egg. The chicken is the investment, but let's enjoy the eggs as we retire. Can it continue to grow? So as the stock market goes up and down, the eggs keep coming back. And as interest rates are dropping, investing for income could be a tremendous opportunity.
Want to learn more?
609-488-4646. Why? You might have questions. I have answers. We've been doing this since 1983, and now I'm going strong for another 40 years if God allows me. If not, my staff will keep the business going. But we want to help you. 609-488-4646. By the way, that's our website.
Yeah, that makes it real easy, financialinsanity.com. And Scott, this was fun as we were going back to 1990. And, well, if you are preparing to retire today, then, well, you're probably well into your career in the 90s and hopefully starting to build up those retirement savings. And so if you are one of those folks and you have questions, again, that number 609-488-4646. But the other great thing that we hope people do is learn from past generations as well. And so, Scott, I know one thing you mentioned, those for maybe those people that are pre-retirees, maybe those younger folks, is to just save early. And it might seem silly, you know, you're 18, you're 20.
Alex.
Yeah.
1990s, it was a tech bubble. And it went to 1999. The price to earnings ratio was 44-1. Everybody had to be in the tech bubble, and it's now heading again, the AI movement. So I want you to be aware you still need to be diversified, and you need to be diversified in portfolios. So don't put too much of your wealth in the hottest AI movement out there, which is fine. But be careful. This is why people want to get well defined and make sure you're really protected. You're buttoned up legally, tax-wise, and financially.
No, that is very wise. And so, again, a final time, that number for Scott McLean and his team at McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to Financial Insanity.
This radio program may contain information which has gone regulatory or other significant changes since its original recording. The information and views expressed on today's show is educational in nature and is not intended to be a recommendation for any specific investment, product, strategy, plan, tax, or legal advice. Information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies, LLC, are not associated entities.
This radio show is a paid placement.